today's video, I'm going to be doing a gouache painting, which is for an artwork for my Great Tree book that I'm working on. It's on 12 by 12 inch blue cardstock I purchased many years ago at a Michaels store, which I store in a box to be used eventually. I'm settling down to paint, traditionally and digitally, all the different artworks I need to for that book. I already previously sketched out and researched the boar croc, as well as printed out a page with various paleo reference, which I'm looking at. I also reference different pictures, photographs of various living species of crocodilians, to which the boar croc is related. Caprasuchus, aka boar croc, the translation of the name means boar crocodile, is an extinct crocodiliform in the Mahajanagasuchid family. I don't know if I said that right, but it's a long word. It was discovered in an expedition to Niger by Paul Sereno and Hans Larsen and their associates in 2009, along with various other extinct animals, including a bunch of interesting crocodilians. Only the nearly complete skull was discovered, 507 millimeters in length, with a longer lower jaw of 603 millimeters. It's been estimated to be 6 meters or 19.7 feet in length. However, it's not quite clear. It's mostly been reconstructed based on the assumptions about its behavior and its closest relatives that are a little more well known. It has 3 complete sets of boar-like, tusk-like, canine-formed teeth that project above and below the skull, with notches or indents within the skull to help accommodate such large, tusk-like fangs. It is theorized to have been primarily or even exclusively a terrestrial predator. Evidence indicates the eye position was more stereoscopic or forward-facing like a terrestrial predator. Also, the details about the way that the teeth work would work better for non-slippery, more land-based prey. There was also fast-opening jaws, a large gape based on the way the structural evidence of the skull appeared to be. The bite also appeared to have the ability to handle an awful lot of stress, and a particularly strong bite due to various factors and fusions in the skull, as if it could handle large struggling prey. It may have had the ability to ram prey as well, with a keratinous rugosite on the tip of the snout. There was evidence that it could have had a bit of a harder growth on the end of the snout for ramming. This will be reflected in the 5e stat block I will be including in the book, because it's going to include a charging attack. While I was working on this, I had several off-screen amounts of paint. I didn't use all of my pre-mixed colors, obviously, but I used several I had pre-mixed before, including several different very pale pastel tones, very pale pastel peach, turquoise, green, off-white to more of the yellowish side, and buff titanium colors, as well as white gouache in general, for the belly colors. I also used a pre-mixed purplish gray color and several shades of very light gray and a mid-tone gray for the belly colors. Several shades of pre-mixed pinkish tones. For the body, when I get to it, I'm going to use several shades of green and brownish tones. I'd already mixed different swampy yellowish greens and more turquoise greens, as well as using several shades of very brownish colors that are a little reddish, and just trying to get things modeled. I also used, in the case of later for the stripes, an almost blackish brown, so a black-brown color mixed. I ended up mixing up another full pan of the black-brown because I found it's an extremely used color that I'm now low on in the half pan I originally mixed it, so I mixed more and a couple different varieties of blackish brown. I'm actually working in layers, and a more watered-down version of this mottled green color with the yellow green, intentionally allowing it to look like it's fading into the mist so that the tail is more of a see-through layer of gouache. Here is after it has dried. I came back in. The head and the foreclaw are going to end up being much more opaque and vibrant and dark with a higher contrast. The top of the shoulder and the neck leaning down in will be the next more opaque and high contrast, followed by the body as it's going back into the distance. The tail, however, is going to remain much more translucent and faded. This is in order to make things very clear, as well as to show a more forced depth. It almost looks like it's walking through mist. I noticed this as a trend in bestiary and different tabletop role-playing game books, so that it can show the creature clearly. When this is put in the book, I'm going to cut out the entire background around everything and have it just on a white background and be a standalone picture. This is meant to be a paleo illustration because I like paleo art in general, but if it's not completely scientifically accurate, that's okay, because its true purpose is to be an illustration in a book. As you can see, I'm using a makeup brush I got at the dollar store, which I think is a very important part of my kit when it comes to painting in general. I've been using different acrylic paint, I've been using different makeup brushes with acrylic paint, and I have a second set that I use with watercolor and gouache, and I find them extremely good to use while painting, so I highly recommend them. The thing with it is, I like to use a variety of brushes, but I find that you can actually spend less money on brushes and get really good stuff. And that gouache also works well when you use filbert brushes, which I find a little less useful for watercolors themselves, but really useful for gouache. You want stiffer, more springy bristles rather than softer ones for gouache in general, except if you're using it very thin, then you can use the same sort of brushes that are perfect for watercolors. In general, even with watercolors, I tend to work tighter and therefore use similar brushes as well. As you can see, I'm layering in and doing various things. I'm going back and forth between adding highlights and shadows, adding mottled skin tone and going over. Later, I will be adding in the stripes. I'm pushing and pulling. I'm using a paper towel now and then, as you saw, to wipe up pooled colors, extra pooled water, or when I accidentally put something in somewhere too dark, I immediately wet it with a brush that's cleanish or pretty clean, and then I dab it up. So I'm lifting up color that ends up going on too dark, so I can maintain that color balance between the front being the most vibrant and the back being the most faded. I also intentionally have been putting additional highlights in order to separate different planes of the body. So, over the rear hips, to separate out the back of the back from the tail behind it, I intentionally put a brighter highlight. I'm also making sure to keep all the scale details. As I said, I never recorded doing the initial drawing because I knew this video would be too long. I knew it was going to take a while to actually paint this in. I already had to speed it up more than 6 times. I had to save the initial video file at 6 times speed and then speed it up even more for this video. So I knew in order to get the video a reasonable length, I was going to have to edit and speed it up quite a bit. So I decided to not include the sketching. This takes a little bit of bravery and a little bit of adjustment to get the darkness correct. But the modeled and detailed skin of living crocodilians is something I used more for reference. But I was also trying to keep in mind the fact that I was planning this one to be like a forest-based predator. So what colorations would be good in the forest? Still, I ended up going with a coloration that looks more like an aquatic crocodile because I was looking at real crocodile reference, and I was also going for something that I found artistically pleasing and what I was in the mood to paint, and not just what is the most likely, plausibly. This would still be pretty camouflage in a forest, however, so I'm kind of happy with it overall. Sometimes I'm blending things out a bit to soften the edges, and other times I'm adding paint in once it's dry to sharpen things up. There's a lot of pushing and pulling, as I said. I'm not sticking to doing all of one color and then something else in a lot of ways, and sometimes I'm going back in to lighten things. For some of the darkest stripes, I had to go back in and add a brighter highlight on top because they were too dark when the back is getting more direct light. Some of the transitions are actually pretty subtle, and I'm proud of the final artwork. Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and look forward to more artwork like this in the future. Once again, that's all for this video. If you like my videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to all notifications so you will know when a new video comes up. I aim for new videos every Wednesday, but sometimes life happens and things are delayed. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you with another one very soon.